Hi, welcome back. It's Laura at Hyperstamper. This is my post-haul junk journal. I've been working on this for a few days actually, and I've been collecting the ephemera in it for about a year. I have enough to make 3 fairy journals this year right now, and I also have enough to make this mermaid journal. I've been wanting to make this for quite some time. Absolutely exquisite content here. It's all authentic, antique, and vintage ephemera, as is everything in all of my journals. So this one I'll be posting on my Etsy shop, hyperstamper.etsy.com. And this is a plate from the early 1900s. It was from the Eaton's children's book. It's a lovely, lovely original plate. It's the presence of little folk. And it's got the little elves and the fairies dancing around in a circle here. It is all mounted on top of a 1937 book, The University of Knowledge, The World We Live in, and the People We Live With. And I used all vintage beads down the side here. They're really, really pretty. And I used my new lace that I got at the haul up here, and vintage and antique crochet and lace doilies down the sides. It is a very chunky journal. Again, I've used lots of lace, and I just went crazy on this one. If you are a collector of fairy ephemera, then watch through the end, because each page is just jam-packed. So I did just this pretty little cluster up here, fabrics and crochet and vintage beads. And then this is from 1925, so it's 100 years old. And it is a little fairy Cupid. And I actually have 2 of these. One will go in my next journal, and it is from 1925. Isn't that beautiful? Oh, and that is from the artist Colombon. And this here is also from a 1920s book where they had just the most exquisite illustrations. And this, look at the fairy on this one. Isn't she beautiful? I just love it. And then this is just a little vintage plate here from this box of vintage library plates here, Book Plate Company. And then we've got this lovely little image down here, and this Chantilly lace, which came from this piece here that I cut out and added to there. A musical visit to fairyland. Again, every page in here is going to have a fairy theme on it, so very exciting. Now this book here, I made a little fairy dress here, and I got this here from this piece of antique handmade lace that is butterflies. Isn't that beautiful? So I cut out one of the butterflies and made it into the fairy wings, and there's her little dress. And I used an antique book from the 1800s that was, this is basically the shape that it was in when I got it. It was in very bad shape, and that is actually the full cover of the book, but I turned it into just this little mini book with antique paper inside, so you could do some extra journaling in it. Isn't that pretty? And then you'll see the pocket is made out of these little elves here. Antique paper here and lace. And then in this pocket with the crochet here is a wonderful 1930s children's book page. Look at these beautiful fairies illustrated here. Put some antique paper on the back that I thought went with the Fun in the Woods theme here. Isn't that wonderful? Oh, I'm just in love with it. This is probably the best plate in the book. I think it is the best plate in the book. Also, this is a Charles Robinson original plate, and that is from the 1920s or earlier. Sorry, I do forget. The Fairy Peddler Man. So I did not touch this because I wanted the story to live with the plate, and just beautiful. Really, really beautiful. And there's another little 1930s children's book page here with the fairies at bedtime. And whoop, another set of fairies here. And this is the My Book House series here. These ones are from a 1950s publication of the My Book House. And up here is the rare sighting of the unicorn. They are hard to find in antique papers, but I pulled this one from a dictionary, which actually had a little picture of it. And it's a thought book, an antique book cover page here. And the scale of D flat, also more fairies and pixies here. That's sweet, very sweet. And this is the Hans Andersen's Fairy Tales dust jacket, and that is a vintage book, quite old. And then just put in a little vintage playing card here because I thought it was spectacular. A different image of the regular kings that you see in playing cards. There's the spine from the book up there. And look at this. This is something I just got yesterday from my vintage and antique haul. And it is silk, embroidered on silk. And I just thought it reminded me of a fairy's wings. And I just love it. Quite a precious piece there. But I thought I'd better part with it quickly before I got too attached to it. And this is from the 1800s, just floral piece here. And then the green feather elves up at the top. I made this little booklet here out of a 1920s children's book page. Cute little, just a sweet little children's book image here. Crochet pocket and all kinds of, oh, here's another wonderful floral here and antique pages in there. Just more journaling space for you. Wonderful little cluster up here, tatting. And look at this wonderful, I have a bunch of these because they all came from the Gateways to Bookland series, which I have quite a few of. So this beautiful fairy, the Woodman's Axe. I left the whole story alone. This is some beautiful vintage fabric with gold threading, and under there is more antique paper to journal on. A little hidden spot for you there. Phoebe's Fairy. I have to show you how sweet this is. You can't see it. The only reason I knew there was a fairy here, she's looking way down in the corner here. There's the little fairy. Isn't that sweet? I love it. More clusters. This is just the back page of that dust cover for journaling on. And I thought it matched this color very well. And there's the fairies at the door. Aren't they sweet? And then in here is early 1900s piece. Another spectacular fairy piece. It's unbelievable how much fairy ephemera I was able to find. I have folders for all the different themes that I have: Scotland and dogs and cats and horses. And when one gets full, I know it's time. So my fairy file was full. That is a really cool fairy tale page from an antique book. And this here, another little elf on here. I thought that was fun. And then this here came from a book about fairies. It's called The Magic Thread. So I put some vintage thread on cardboard here, probably from an old sewing kit. And this is from the book. It's the first page plate, Fairies and Enchanters. So those two pages should live together forever, because that's how they were found. And then up here, I have the last of my photographs from the 1930s. And this is a little girl who is dressed up as a fairy. You can just see her little wings back here. I had another photo of this girl in my first fairy journal from a few months ago, which sold in about 14 seconds. So here's your chance to get this one. It may not sell quickly, but I think it will because it's pretty spectacular. There's a journaling tag there. Two 1950s receipts up here. And this pocket, another beautiful 1920s illustration of fairies and butterflies. Just, oh, fantastic. And this is another wonderful little, the fairies here. Look at the colors. And that's from Book Trails. That's also an antique book. And then just a little story there. And I made a pocket of it here. A teasing kindly fairy. So you can journal on the front and the back. And that came from the book Penniless Girl. More fairies here. And dryads. And I had to put some botanicals in because fairies are always found in the gardens. And just more botanicals here. And just a lovely page here to use any way you want. You can add journaling paper to it, make a collage. And the pocket down here is an operetta where the people on stage are dressed like fairies. And just more 1905 pictures of garden flowers. And then over here we have a story about fairy gold. That's sweet. And then this is the first plate or first page from a 1926 book called Unknown Fairies of Canada. I did not know we had unknown fairies in Canada. Apparently we do. And you have to have a bird page as well because they are also winged things. I have a pocket here. I just like this book banknote here because it's got this lovely woman on it here. And then I just made this from this week's unique piece. Little notepad there. And another wonderful children's book page here. That lovely fairy godmother there. I believe. I can tell from the wand, I would think. Just another little journaling space here. The Fairy Fiddler, another book page here. And I turn the other side into a crochet pocket and just put in this lovely little antique dictionary page, Cuckoo. And this here is spectacular. This is from the 1800s. It's an original plate as well. And then the fairies went to bed, and she is reading a fairy story to the little girl there. Isn't that lovely? That's very precious and very special. And here is another 1920s. Actually, it might be older than that. Might be turn of the century. The Night Light Fairy. You can see a girl and boy in the garden here with the birds. The Fairies House Hunt. Isn't that wonderful? Another different depiction of fairies there. Just some lace here. And these are the last pages of that Fairies in Canada book. And that brings us to the end. And I want to show you this last page. Look at the binding. I worked so hard to save this. It's the binding of these pages using a stitching that I have never seen. So that's very special. Just a little detail I wanted to point out. I hope you love it as much as I loved making it. Hyperstamper.etsy.com, and please come back soon.